Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Haydn Adams with A Designer That Codes. In today's tutorial, I want to show you how you can upload a Gatsby site. I have one right here running on my development server, my localhost 8000. My last video included doing a Google Fonts tutorial, so I'm kind of sticking with the same design. I never get to use these display fonts, so for me, I was like, hey, you know what? Since I'm just finishing a tutorial on Google Fonts, let's use a Google font. So I did in this way. This is my wonderfully cool site. It is using the Hello World, so I changed Hello World to send this site to Netlify and beyond via Git Hub. So Git Hub is where you get to store all your repositories or your Gatsby code. For me, I was like a holdout where I'm like, I don't need to use GitHub. To me, it was just one extra piece that I didn't have to use. I would just drag and drop my files in a Netlify and I was done. And then a developer friend of mine said, you should use GitHub. And I said, why? And he says, you should. And I said, why? And back and forth we went until he goes, because you can collaborate on files and make things easier for everyone. And I went, oh, well, that makes a lot more sense. So I want to show you how you can use GitHub and deploy it into Netlify using one less step than if you wrote a Gatsby build inside. I'm going to stop this while this is running. So you can use Netlify to run a Gatsby build based upon the GitHub, and it goes back and forth. This is a repository you can push and pull your code back and forth. So I want to show you how to use GitHub to deploy your Gatsby site to Netlify in this example. And with that, let's get started. All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Once again, my name is Haydn Adams with A Designer That Codes. If you're watching us for the first time, I hope you enjoy this channel. My goal is to bring a sense of ease to designers out there who are just like, when it comes to coding and using more modern technology. If you check out my channel, you'll see a lot of stuff going on regarding Gatsby JS. To me, it's one of my favorite tools to use because it builds rapidly fast sites, but you gotta code. And that's the whole title, A Designer That Codes. Better code, better design. In this example, I'm going to talk about how to getting your code or getting your design out there in the universe using Netlify via GitHub. And GitHub is not necessarily designed for designers. The site really is designed for developers. But this is where the line gets blurred, because in order to put your content out there, you got to store your code somewhere. So I am running a version of Gatsby. I use the Gatsby Hello World version. If I pull up the code, it's all of this. In my last video, I did use, and I did a tutorial on Google Fonts, and so I decided to use a fun font and send this site to Netlify via GitHub. First step in this process is to get our code onto GitHub. So in GitHub, I am logged in. If this is your first time to GitHub, it's going to look something. Let me pull up Chrome. Where'd it go? There it is. Yay! Built for developers. But wait, I'm a designer, you say. And I said, well, congratulations, you are moving into the world of front-end development all of a sudden. Welcome. Here we go. If this is your first time, click on Sign Up. If you signed up before, click on Sign In. Since I am signed in, I'm going to go back into Safari. I've got a bunch of other repositories, but you'll probably have none if this is your first time. So let's set up a brand new repository. And all a repository is just a storage of your code, your repo as it's basically called. In the repository name, I'm going to say, demo of site to deploy to Netlify. Wow, that's a pretty boring name, but it still works. Bear in mind, this is all going to be public if you want it to be, and if not, you can choose to see and comment it being private. And this is the case, doesn't matter to me. You're welcome to take a look at it. So I'm going to say public for this one right here. So if I want a description, I will say this is a simple site that is designed to be deployed to Netlify. You don't have to, and it does tell you that it's going to then put the dashes, demo dash of dash site to dash deploy dash to dash Netlify. I'm not going to worry about initializing with a README because you already have that. I'm going to say Google. Gatsby puts that in there for you. And I'm not going to worry about a git ignore because that's already there as well. I'm going to say create repository right here. And just like that, yay, we're kind of done, but not really. The next step is to actually use our terminal to deploy our code to GitHub. If we circle back to Gatsby's setup, if you go to gatsbyjs.org/tutorials over here, what you'll find is numero 0 will be setting up your development environment. Remember when Gatsby tells you to familiarize yourself with the command line? That's not just for fun. We're going to use the Gatsby terminal line. You're going to use the command line in order to deploy your site to GitHub. Down here under one of the steps, if you've followed Gatsby before, installing Git is one of the requirements in using Gatsby. Depending upon where you're on, either Mac OS, Windows, or Linux, I'm going to assume you've already done this and you've installed Git. We can see if you've done it correctly by saying git -- version within your terminal. And if I do that, hey, Git version 2.23.0 has been installed on my system. So I do know it is done properly, but if you have not followed these steps yet, follow these steps, pause the video, and come back. Hey, welcome back. If you've paused the video, welcome back. If you kept going, well, we're right here. So we're at the point again where I have to deploy all of this code into my Gatsby site. Inside the terminal, I'm going to navigate to where my project is. In this case, mine is in a folder called Dropbox. I have a folder called Gatsby Demo Projects, and I number them. And I believe my number is 07 Gatsby JS. The cool part about using iTerm, if I type 07, hit the tab key, it fills in the rest for me. So what I'm going to do is, in this design, I'm going to copy this bit of code right here, and I'm going to paste it in and give it a second. Oh, I do have to have a password. I did do an update not too long ago. I will always allow this. And there we go. So we do that. Hey, it kind of looks cool. So if we refresh, there it is. So it pushes the general amount of information forward. But what I want to do is I want to do my first real push because it didn't add any of the CSS. It just did the initial repository push that was set up by default using Gatsby. So what I want to do is I'm going to then have to type some more code to bring in the changes that I've made since I used the Gatsby Hello World. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to say git add asterisk, and in code the asterisk says add everything. I hit return. Hey, check it out. Notice something interesting too. The following paths are ignored by one of your git ignore files. This is a little side note I want to bring into. Notice how the git ignore files includes your git modules. So whenever you see a period on a file, it's essentially an invisible file on your computer. I'm on a Macintosh and I want to show you what this git ignore file does. If I hit Command Shift period on the Macintosh, it shows my invisible files. And within my Gatsby project, there is a git ignore file. If I drag this file up into, let's try it one more time. There we go. The git ignore file says do not upload any of these different pieces onto Git. Now, Git is a public repository, meaning anything that uploads will always be there. But it's also something to note as well. The node modules, if we go back into this folder, notice that everything is like 252, 4K, 10K, 433. The node modules are 130.5. That's something to be aware of, because if we look at the Git pricing, and I go to pricing and plans, just so you see how the pricing works in Git, the free version, GitHub Basics for every developer, you can do unlimited repositories, 3 collaborators, 2,000 action minutes a month. That is a crazy amount of action minutes. I can't even think about how many minutes that is. But what you also have to look at is it's only 500 megabytes of GitHub packages storage, meaning this one project is already 130.5 megs in node modules alone. And so the git ignore file kicks the node modules out of the upload process when it comes to Git. So that was a little side note I wanted to bring into about the git ignore file, about how it's really, really important to have it inside of your project, and the Gatsby starter library builds that in by default. That's pretty cool. All right, back to our terminal. So our last bit of code that I did do was, where is my up arrow? Git add star, and that says add all the files to GitHub, but it didn't upload the files. It just said git add. That's because we haven't said let's commit them to uploading. It's like, I want to upload, I'm committing it in writing, and now push the button and go. So I'm going to say git commit -m for markup, and I'll say my initial push of content. I put it in quotes, ignore the different line of the screen. In theory, I could make this bigger, and it makes it longer or smaller. Once again, I'm not worried about it too much. But git commit going on, hit return, and it says, hey, 5 files have changed, 25 interactions and 2 deletions, including the custom CSS file. So we've told Git what to add. We've gave it a markup to say, hey, this is my initial push. Now let's say git push origin master, saying push all the content up onto Git. And if we close Chrome just for a second or two, this is the version before I push this. Hit return, it's going to kick all of the content up to Netlify, and now when I refresh it, now I see a source folder or circ, and in here I now have a CSS and a pages. And my CSS, if I look at the CSS, hey, H1 font family, alpha slab 1. So it has a repo or a repository of your code. This is also a great thing because let's say your computer goes belly up tomorrow, you have a version stored on GitHub and you can download the files. Literally, if I go back and back and back, oh, not that far. That's too far. Let's go to repositories and demo of site to Netlify. That was too far in that direction, but I can clone or download my work. So literally this is a backup of my files of what I've just done. That's great because I can always, if I do a lot of stuff on my computer, I'm like, oh my God, I just totally ruined this. I can just download this and re-download it. We deployed the site to GitHub. Now we have to do is we have to then go into Netlify and connect this repository to our website. And let's do that right now. So I'm on Netlify, which is netlify.com. And if this is your first time being here, you're going to want to click on the sign up button. For me, I already have an account, so I'm going to use the login button. And here I am. Right when I log in, I've got some other projects I've already built in the past for clients. But note right here, I can say new site from Git right on the main screen. That's pretty darn cool if you ask me. So we've already established our project inside of Git by calling it Haydn 5/demo of site to deploy to Netlify. And in this project, I'm going to say new site from Git. Connect to a Git provider. You might be using GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket. I have GitHub, so I'm going to select GitHub. Now this will already authorize me because I've done it once before. If this is your first time, it'll just ask you to authorize it, which I did with no problem. And now I have to go find Haydn 5/demo, and it's in alphabetical order. So I'm going to say Haydn 5 demo of site to deploy to Netlify. It's going to notice it, recognize it, and go, well, what do I have to do? If we go back into our terminal, if I type Gatsby, this will give us a list of actionable items in which you can use Gatsby. And in here, you can do a lot of things. A lot of my demos focus on the Gatsby develop, but what I want to do eventually is do a Gatsby build and build a Gatsby project. What's cool about Netlify is the build command is Gatsby build, and the publish directory is public. All I have to do in order to deploy this site is literally click deploy site. And what it's going to do is it's in queued to run this. If I refresh the page, it's building my site. And what's kind of fun about this is maybe I'm just a little bit of a geek designer turned developer, and I'll let this run as I'm talking, is that it's actually going to run my build right inside their terminal, the Netlify terminal. And what's really great about this is it should work, and 90% of the time it does, but every so often I'm bound to screw up, and essentially it'll tell me what's going to mess up. Terminal to terminal, let me close this one. This will tell me all of the problems if there's an issue. So far, it's running pretty well. Once again, I'm just running the Gatsby starter hello world, so it's a very, very small build. Bigger and bigger projects will take longer when it comes to this style. But for me, what I like about it is all I have to do, hey, look like we're good. 10:08 a.m. I do run this in the morning. Site is live. So now what I have to do is I'm going to come up to the top. I'm going to go back out of deploys. And now I went from building and in queued to publish. So if I click on Wizardly Clark 29B054.netlify.com, all that work, hey, send this site to Netlify via GitHub. It is now online. If I wanted to change that name, so I can always go back to overview, and in the domain settings, if you just want to have a funky or cool name, what I can always do is I can change the name, but I'll just keep it here for right now. When it comes to options, in terms of a subdomain for Netlify, I could change it, but I don't have to worry about it right now because it's just very simple. So if we go back to the build, I want to show you something. Let's go back to the build. No deploy messages. That was the first deployment that we did. But let's change something about our site, and then we'll see how it actually comes up in the comments with that git commit. So if I go back to my terminal, there we go. I'm going to say Gatsby develop, just so I can see something actually work. Maybe, as it takes a few seconds. But in order for me to push a change, I have to make a change. So I'm going to do something, a little bit of a difference of change here. I'm going to change this sentence. Whenever I work inside of Gatsby, I'm always going to run the terminal and run it develop first, just because if I make a mistake, it'll tell me along the way. So in case I take out this div and I click save, it's going to go, oh man, failure on your part. You forgot the end of the div. And if I bring it back, we're back to success. So I will say this is a change. Sweet. I save it. It's going to build. And if I run the local host, this is a change. Sweet. So now I've made a change to my design. Let's stop this and let's add it back to Netlify. So I'll say Control-C on the Macintosh. I'm going to say git add star to add all the changes. In this case, it's one file. It tells me again that the gitignore file is the node modules public, and if you want to use it, you can change them, which I'm not going to worry about. I'm going to say git commit m, or I was also taught am, but I'll say git commit m changed the text on the index.js. I'll save it. One file was changed, obviously, with the index.js. And I will say git push origin master. And with that, it's going to upload the files. And that's it. Like, that's all it takes to upload the files. And if we go to our overview page and refresh the page, notice now that git commit says change the text on the index.js, and it's building. That's all it took. Literally, the building and the message, when I wrote the git commit, it noted what was changed and put it in the notes. So if you ever come back in 4 or 5 months and go, what did I last do? It'll tell you in the production deploys. One more thing about Netlify as well. It's free, but up to a certain amount. And this is the part I want to show you. Let's go to, I'm going to pull up Netlify. And netlify.com on Chrome because I'm logged out, so I can show the pricing easier if I'm logged out. So the pricing in Netlify, one team member, one concurrent build. If you hit 100 gigs a month, kudos to you on such a small site. But the one I want to look at is 300 build minutes a month. Now, I haven't hit that before just because that's a lot of build minutes. But if you have a bigger project, you might run into the fact that you might have a lot of build minutes. So what are build minutes? That's the minutes it took. If I go back to Chrome, and if I go here, and that published, if you think about the time it took, build time right here, it took all of 31 seconds. So out of 300 minutes, I used 31 seconds. Does it add up over time? Yes. Is it to worry about? If you're doing this every single day and you're pushing large and large files, you probably will go above the 300 minutes. I do things every other day or so for clients, so for me, I'm not too worried about it, but I am aware of it. The billing area will tell you once it's effective. I started on November 14th, 2019. A little late to the game, only because I was a Google Firebase person, and so for me, it was a different area. And so what this is going to do eventually, once it takes its sweet time, by calculating all of my minutes up, it might take a little bit longer because I might have about 120, 130 minutes in this area, but it'll eventually tell me through all of my projects. It's taking longer than I thought, but it'll tell you how many kilobytes are being used, how many megabytes are being used, and also from the 14th of each month, how many build minutes I have on my project. So you might have 10, 20, 30 in this direction, but just be aware that they price it not necessarily on storage. You do get 100 of bandwidth a month. You do get a lot of space on this project. We can go through all the areas later on, but do be aware that it is 300 included build minutes a month. The cool thing is, if you go above that, you can get 500 minutes for $7. So it's pretty incredible and very inexpensive to host your sites on Netlify. And more importantly, what's great about it is that it's almost essentially free if you don't go above the 300 build minutes, which, as we just saw back here, this project, and we take a look at the production of it all, took a whopping 31 seconds. And that's how you can effectively use Netlify to build your projects with your Gatsby JS using your GitHub account to store your repository file. So throughout that entire demo, did you get it working? Do you have a Netlify page like this where you can click and read something on the screen? If so, post a comment. Post your Netlify site. This could be your very, very first one. I'd love to give you a shout out on future videos if you've done that. Once again, my name is Haydn Adams with A Designer That Codes. Thank you so much for taking time to watch these videos. I hope it helps you in your everyday design/development life. If you don't mind, smash that subscribe button if this has helped you and help me grow my channel week by week. Once again, I'm Haydn Adams with A Designer That Codes. Check us out on patreon.com where you can download the source code at any of these videos you see here, and supporting us just costs at minimum $3 per month. Thank you for your support.